The Big 12 has probably been the most unpredictable Power 4 league this year, and if you look at the standings, it won't take a long time to see why. At the top are BYU, Iowa State, and Kansas State, followed by Texas Tech, Cincinnati, and Colorado. Texas Tech and Cincinnati have come absolutely out of nowhere. Those coaches doing an incredible job. Texas Tech and Cincinnati are both 5-2 at this point in the year. Colorado 5-2 as well, and so is Arizona State. Those are all teams that are playing very solid football. But then if you look near the bottom of the conference, there's a lot of the teams that people thought would win it. Oklahoma State is dead last at 0-4 in the conference and 3-4 overall. Kansas is doing terribly as well. They are 2-5. Utah's 4-3. Arizona's 3-4. Both of those teams are just 1-3 in conference play. And so yeah, very topsy-turvy Big 12 right now. Right now, my favorite would still be Kansas State for this league. I think Texas Tech is dangerous because of their offensive attack. I like BYU a lot. I think Iowa State is probably the third best team in this league right now, if I had to say. Obviously, there's all the hype around Colorado. Can they sustain that through the rest of the year? I don't know. Then Cincinnati is the weirdest one for me. I did not see that coming at all. I don't know if anyone else did. If you were on the bandwagon at the start of the year, that would be a very small bandwagon for Cincinnati to be this good. Please let me know because I would be very impressed by that. But this past week in the Big 12, we already touched on the Oklahoma State BYU game. That was a thriller, and the UCF Iowa State game. But Kansas State absolutely destroyed West Virginia. Very solid performance from them. Avery Johnson had a good game in that one, throwing for 3 touchdowns. Cincinnati upset Arizona State. That was at home for Cincinnati. I think that played a big part of it. But great game for the Bearcats, really shutting down this Arizona State rushing attack that's been so good all year. And they got the win because of it. Moved to 5-2. Very impressed by them. Kansas finally getting another conference win, beating Houston 42-14. This Houston team is awful. Only because Oklahoma State exists are they not the bottom of this conference right now. Colorado beat Arizona badly, 34-7. Arizona's probably one of the more disappointing teams in the country for me thus far. The no-feeded Tedroy McMillan connection has been a bit faulty, and then the defense looks just bad. The defense is flat out awful. They cannot stop anything this season, and it's proving that Jed Fish was really important down there in Tucson. Then the surprise of the week in the Big 12 was Baylor beating Texas Tech 59-35. This is a Baylor team that came into this game at 2-4 overall and 0-3 in the conference and took down a Texas Tech team that had a lot of momentum. So I was very impressed with the Bears, especially this game being in Lubbock. Great performance from Baylor. Then the last game was TCU at Utah, and this game was a terrible game. TCU won 13-7. Both teams are now 4-3, and Utah is once again missing an injured Cam Rising, who will surely come back for his 27th season next year. Looking ahead to this coming week, BYU travels down to Florida to take on UCF. I would expect the Mormons to take that one. Oklahoma State at Baylor. Normally I'd say Oklahoma State easily, but with how Baylor's playing recently and Oklahoma State has not won a conference game, flip a coin on that one, honestly. I'll probably still take Oklahoma State, but it's a lot closer than I think I would have said at the start of the year. Texas Tech at TCU is a sneaky good game. I'd expect the Red Raiders to be able to pull that out. West Virginia at Arizona in the battle of teams that were hyped at the start of the year and have not delivered. Obviously, Garrett Green has struggled for the Mountaineers, and we already mentioned the Arizona attack. Utah at Houston in the battle of bad red teams. I would expect Utah to still take this one. Houston is much worse than Utah. Even though Utah's not great, Houston is much worse. Kansas at Kansas State. Never know what's going to happen in a rivalry game, but Kansas State is so good right now. They're really on form. I love the rushing attack duo they have, and Avery Johnson is also an incredible player. Then the real good game of the week in the Big 12 is 5-2 Colorado versus 5-2 Cincinnati. I think the winner of this game ends up ranked, or at least should be, at 6-2, and I know a lot of people are going to be taking Colorado in this game. I do agree with them, but I think Cincinnati plays this game close. I think Cincinnati's going to come into this game doubted. They're going to be motivated, and if Colorado's not careful, I think Cincinnati could shock them. But as far as the Big 12's playoff hopes for this year, I think this is a one-bid league, honestly. I don't see them having enough top-end talent to get 2 teams in, especially with Notre Dame floating out there in limbo, whatever they're doing. I think it's Kansas State. I think Kansas State is the best team in this conference. I think BYU's second, Iowa State's third. I trust the Kansas State defense more than the BYU defense. I know we've seen BYU beat Kansas State by a ton earlier this year, but a lot of weird things went down in that game. Granted, it's still an impressive win because you beat them by a lot at home. Great win for BYU, but I think if you play that game again on a neutral field, a lot of bounces maybe go a different way. Kansas State could come out on top with a win there. So I think the Wildcats are the Big 12's only team in the playoff this season.